back to the mid-1980s. We were building bicycles for a pro team. The 7-Eleven pro team was the first team to go to Europe. And it was the first time they were entering the Tour de France. And we had to build a set of special bikes. And there was something emotional about it. It was like we'd been building bicycles, but had built thousands of bikes. And but this was the Tour de France. And so there was something that was everybody involved. There were only a handful of us that were actually working on those bikes at the time, but there was like, oh boy, they're riding these in the Tour de France. There's something different, and so it was a phenomenal experience, and that was a threshold.
Thanks.
Wow. I'd have to say it's my first bike. I spent almost 3 years just developing the tubes for that bike. I had set up an aerospace composite company where they had all the equipment for me to build tubes. I had a roll wrap machine so I could build all my own tubes. I built all my own manuals, designed all my own tubes, and all the parts that went into the bike. As I say, I spent almost 3 years just designing and developing the tubes. And then once I came up with tube shapes and tubes layups that I liked, I had to design how I was going to put this bike together. So every aspect of it, from how the bike was put together, how the tubes were put together, the layup, the fiber orientation, the type of fiber, how I was going to build the water bottle mounts, how I was going to build the lugs, how I was going to build the brake bridge, everything about it, was made for the first time in my shop by myself. So it presented some challenges, but it was fun. I've always enjoyed problem solving, so that's why I build bikes, I guess. So I'd have to say it's the first bike I built.
Nick, challenge?
Well, on the
bike you built?
in fact, well, I was involved in most of the series. I worked also on some modifications on titanium and steel frames, but mostly composites. And well, I have to say, the most challenging was clearly the HL, because the goal was to win back that title of the lightest frame in the world. So put everything back on the drawing board, and I had to design 2 new test benches to test it out, because the previous test benches we had, the first generation of Photon HL were passing all the tests, but on the road, cracks would occur or some different things that we couldn't reproduce in the test lab. So I designed 2 different test benches for impacts and stuff like that. So we really had to step up our game in order to make it work and to make it as safe as any other bike, but with the lower weight. So yeah, HL again.
Glad you tested the bikes.
We did 37 prototypes, I think.
Ben, if you weren't building custom bikes, what would you do? Life put you in a different direction. What would you be doing?
I would have maybe gone, or I had originally planned to go into into environmental sciences. Probably would not have stayed on that course, because I'm too creative and didn't fit into organizations very well. So I probably would have gone into architecture. Love buildings. It's an addiction that my wife and I share, for better or for worse sometimes. We have some great projects and some nightmares, but we love homes. And architects I have a number of relatives for generations that are designers.
Well, I've spent my life building things, so I'd have to assume I'd be building something. I spent, as I said, about 27 years building boats, and I've been out of that for the last 12 or more years. And I haven't had a boat, and so I guess, I don't know what I'd be doing. I have a design project that I'm working on now, a lightweight and user-friendly, that folds up into a small space, wheelchair that I'm designing, and that's an interesting project. I guess so, if it was right now, I'd be out sailing my boat. I just bought a boat last summer, so I'm looking forward to getting on that. And, but I'd be building things. I love problem solving. I love how things flow together. I love looking at how things are built. I don't know, I don't know whether it's a refrigerator, a car, a bicycle, or what. I just love looking at things and problem solving. So,
Nick, when you get that internship, what would you be doing?
The wind industry probably. I've been working on wind turbine blades for a couple of years in different projects. Or maybe I would have stayed, originally before going to college I was in geophysics. But I always knew I was going to be an engineer since I'm like 8 years old or something like that. Always building stuff and unbuilding stuff or breaking stuff that my dad talked about sometimes. Yeah, wind turbine blades probably.
Do you see yourself in another 20 years sitting here? Right?
20 years, you'd still be half our age.
One of the previous questions you asked about the most challenging bikes, he said it was an 87. I was born in 87. I was smiling. In 20 years, I hope I'll still be in the bike industry.
So do we. We need you.
If I wasn't working in the bike industry, I would be riding my bike. And if I couldn't pay the bills doing that, then sculpture, because that's so lucrative.
Right. Nick, what do you enjoy most about your work? What gets you excited every day going in?
It's pushing the envelope. I love numbers. I love the stats, the physics behind the thing, building up simulation calculations and stuff. So that's what that keeps me awake at night. And so the better part of it is the hardcore engineering without limitations. Let's say I was working in the aerospace industry. You got all those regulations. You got to test for 15 years and before putting something to the market. The bike industry enables us to go very, very high-end. And yeah, really pushing the envelope the more you can and seeing that product on the market quite soon after that. I love that.
So you saying that we're your test dummies?
Not at all. It's not 15 years, it's more 1 or 2.
For me, going to work every day, 2 things, probably switches each day. One is working with riders to design the bike that they want, the ideal bike that the rider wants. It's hard to imagine doing anything cooler than that, so that's really easy to come into work early every day to focus on that. The other thing is the group of people I work with. It's an amazing group, and whether we were doing bikes or something else, I can't imagine working with a better group than those that I do, and the retailers too. It's an amazing group.
You didn't have to say that.
I know. And in some settings I wouldn't.
Ben, what floats your boat? That's Bob.
I'm a people person.
Yeah,
Oh, it's Bob Stern.
No, it's you. The boat thing is Bob.
Yeah. Well, we're, you know, I'll echo something that Rob just said. It is just an incredible experience to come to work with really wonderful people, and you know, in those of you who have followed our company, you know, we've been around for we're in our 41st year now, but we've had our ups and downs. We had a pretty tough stretch for a few years, and what kind of kept us going was I you know, come into work, we'd have a staff meeting weekly, and there was a period of time that we you know, we were fairly uncertain about the economics of our situation. And we'd say, look, guys, we right now we don't know. Just think of each bike that you're building as the last bike that we might build. So make sure it's the best bike we've ever built. And that kind of energy was fabulous. And that is the way we approach every bike that we build. But it only can happen because of the group of people that are there creating the magic every day. And so that's powerful. And the other half of that is related to that is we're in the business of delivering happiness and excitement. And every bike that we build, we also live vicariously through the experience that our owners have with their bikes. And it's pretty lucky to have that.
I think we're all pretty blessed here. We get to do what we want to do, and that's a pretty good deal in and of itself, and that's exciting every day to go to work and do that. I can tell you, my least favorite part of business is sitting in the office. My favorite part of business is being out on the floor. I still enjoy it. I don't build the bikes now, but I design the bikes. I sit down and do a drawing, and we'll start building a prototype, and whether it's in wood or carbon fiber, to get my point across, that's the part that really floats my boat. That's the part that I get excited about every day. That's the reason I stay late at night, and that I do what I do. I truly love building things. I have a great group of people like Tom, who's here. He's a huge help to me every day in terms of design and developing things. Not only selling bikes, but and everything. Just lucky to do what we do, and I really get off on making things. I just like the feel of it. I like doing it.
Thanks. Let's open it up to you guys. Good.
I have two questions. So if you restrict the conversation only to carbon fiber, and you slice off those sort of prototypical bikes like the Exxon GrafTech that were out at first, but they weren't really commercially viable, what is the single biggest technological advance from that first generation of commercially viable bike to today, in your opinion?
What's the first?
No, what is the biggest
The
technological advance?
Well, I think people learning how to deal with fiber. I think one of the things that they did in that GrafTech bike was they had the fiber orientation all going into zero direction, which made it really kind of a horrible bike to ride and sit on. I think that's the thing that I focused a lot, and I think when we first started building bikes, they called it black aluminums because it basically mimicked an aluminum tube. The modulus would be very similar, the bending would be very similar. They would make it, isotropic, so it was the same, it had the same strength in all directions. And I think the thing that's changed the most is fiber orientation and learning to use that to optimize that in a bike frame.
Another question?
What's everybody's opinion of the new endurance bike category?
The new bike.
Endurance bikes, as they call
The endurance stuff?
them, like for long distance riding?
I love them. I mentioned that earlier, actually. Right now, that's, for Seven, it's been a really big part of what we do. I think in part because every bike we do is custom. We can do, disc brake 33 seats higher with fender, rack setup, light mounts, all that stuff very easily. So I think we've come up that curve really quickly relative to the industry. So that's been a lot of fun. And that market, it looks like it's growing really quickly for our existing customers too, and a lot of retailers we're working with in the States. And the idea of a bike that's really well designed for that kind of riding, it's a very different bike than a road bike. You can certainly ride a road bike on D2R2, let's say, but probably not have a great experience. But if you have a bike that's really designed for D2R2, it really changes the ride experience. Whether you're doing on-road, off-road stuff, paved, unpaved, or just paved roads, randonnées, brevets, populaires, all that stuff is just exploding. And we're doing, I don't know the percentage, but a really good percentage of the bikes we're working on now are in that category, and I just see that expanding for 7.
And that's all, you do it all carbon fiber?
I'd say the majority of it is tie. So for us, biggest category would be full tie frames. Then steel is probably second, and then tie carbon would be third. We don't do any full carbon for endurance, partly because of the rigors of you taking D2R2 is kind of an extreme. I think titanium and steel are better suited for that kind of riding, for the ride characteristic that you want, sort of the comfort and performance combination. So tie would be, in a lot of ways, the ideal material, I think, for endurance riding, because you don't have to worry about rain or rust or durability or scratching the frame or any of that stuff. So it's really great material.
I would not disagree with that. I mean, we're seeing an increase as well in bicycles that are built for athletes who are doing endurance rides. It really depends on what it is that the athlete, the individual wants, and where they're planning on riding. And as Bob said, with carbon fiber, the more you work with it, the more it can be anything you want it to be in terms of performance. And carbon fiber doesn't have to be fragile or delicate; it can be extremely durable as well. And so it really depends on what, endurance is a category, but it's a very broad category. One person's definition of an endurance ride is quite different from somebody else's, and so that we respond, one at a time. We've changed some of the spacing options that we do on our carbon bikes as well as the titanium bikes, so that we can accommodate larger tires and that sort of thing as well.
You want more? No, it's good. Bob's got an opinion on carbon.
Yeah, no, we're seeing more of that, and that's why I think that the industry throws curves at us all the time. Like I think Ben can attest to this, that up until just not that terribly long ago, we had one size tire, one bottom bracket, and now we have to accommodate a multitude of riding styles and tire sizes and bottom brackets and everything. So we're constantly being tested. So I think we're constantly being pushed to be creative, and we're sort of answering that. But carbon, that's all I build, so that's all I know.
Yeah.
Not much opinion because I'm working with the material itself all the time. I wouldn't know what to answer to that. So.
Okay, cool. I've got another question. What are your thoughts on disc brakes making a solid inroad into typical road bikes? Because we're seeing them kind of dip in and out. Ben?
Yeah, actually somebody here asked me that question earlier, and I think my answer was, which is maybe a cheesy answer, but I think disc brakes won't be fully accepted in road bikes unless the UCI, governing body of racing, decides that there should be a conversion. In motorsports, in motorcycles and Formula One, NASCAR, there are pretty strict guidelines about the performance, many of the performance features of those vehicles that are used, so that the playing field and the cars are predictable. And that's one of the major issues with mixing and matching brake types within a peloton. And the riders in a pro peloton have to have such a high degree of trust in each other, knowing exactly how they're going to behave over every condition, that the performance of the equipment has to fall within that too. I mean, some of the crashes, at least this is a theory of mine, crashes had gone up quite a bit in the pro peloton, and part of that, I'm pretty sure, is because of the introduction of a lot of deep dish carbon wheels, which behave very differently in cornering and hot crosswinds and so forth. And the bikes, a lot of them have become very, very stiff. And so it's different. It used to be that all the bikes were very similar within the pro peloton. So I think, and disc brake performance is very different from a caliper conventional brake performance. So unless the UCI feels that it's going to make a good change for racing overall, UCI won't adopt it. Without UCI adapting it, then it's just kind of gonna be in the sidelines